Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network.
Oh boy, it's Thursday night. Better Sports Network, Dynasty Nerds. I am your host, Garret Price, and it's good to be back, guys. Now, granted, I was with you last week, but it wasn't the same as it normally is. Normally, it's just me and you and me. We're hanging out, we're talking. There were a lot of other people last week, a lot of other things going on, some great hosts. I popped in here and there, talked about a player, popped back out. It was a very good time, but there was a good reason for it. It was the NFL freaking draft. Yes, that's right. Just the two of us, Fork. Just me and you, man. Look, the NFL draft is arguably my favorite weekend of the entire year. Uh, this goes back even before I was at Dynasty Nerds, even before I became a Dynasty fanatic, even when I was in high school. Like, I would basically set that weekend aside. If somebody wanted to do something, like, sorry, you can come over and watch it with me. But outside of that, like, there's nothing else to do. It's you sit down and you watch the NFL draft and you talk about this guy went too high, this guy went too low, all the trades. You get mad at your team, or you think you're going to win the Super Bowl, which for the Cleveland Browns, I was a Cleveland Browns fan, or I am a Cleveland Browns fan. You basically think that's your Super Bowl every year, because every year you draft some great young players, and this is our year that things finally turn around, and they never do. They never turn around. But so I've always loved the draft, even when we were in college and my now wife and I were dating. And I literally, the one time I was like, hey, why don't you invite, one of your friends over to your place tonight too? And she's like, really? I was like, yeah. And I told her later it was because I really wanted to focus on the draft. And I knew the two of them would talk a bunch to each other. And then I wouldn't have to stress out about that. And I would just let them do their thing and I could watch the draft. And it worked out beautifully. But that was also the year that we traded the 8th overall pick. And that ended up being Julio Jones. So, yeah. Trade question. I'm always up for taking trade questions on the show. So let's get into it. Josh is asking AR-15 to Pittman or Stroud to Dell. Better long-term duo. I got to go with Anthony Richardson and Pittman. Partly because Pittman is a proven commodity and Tank Dell's not. I do like Tank Dell more than my co-hosts on the show, Rich and Matt. Especially Rich is like anti-Tank Dell just because of his size. And I get it. Traditionally, they don't pan out. So I understand the hate. I do like him a little bit more, though, than Rich does. But that being said, I got to go with Pittman there. Pittman over Tank Dell. He's proved it over 3 seasons, been very consistently good. Hopefully, this is the best quarterback he's had since he's been in the league. And then you look at the two quarterbacks. Stroud is safer, but I'm taking Anthony Richardson ahead of him in drafts, which is tough for me. Like, typically, I like to play it a little more conservative. But I said on the Dynasty Nerds show, there was one landing spot. You can go back and listen to the show, the draft breakdowns of the quarterbacks. Or I think we even cut the clip and I retweeted it yesterday, today, something like that. The one thing that would change my mind and move Anthony Richardson ahead of Stroud and Young would be for him to go to the Indianapolis Colts. Perfect fit. Steichen is a perfect fit for him as a coach. It's the best running back, good receivers. Like, it's a perfect fit for him. So I love that situation. So definitely going AR-15 and Pittman. My producer's reminding me too, one of the things that going back to Stroud and Dell for a second, Stroud really wanted Dell. Like, that was a guy that he asked that they go after. So that is always interesting when a quarterback hand selects a guy. But so far when Patrick Mahomes has done that, that hasn't necessarily panned out the best. So these quarterbacks aren't always the best GM. So we'll see. We'll see. But it is always interesting when they do that. Tuckleberry, he asked, as a contender, with decent running back depth, should I trade Swift for the 105? One quarterback, start 8. Starting 8, one quarterback. So in one quarterback, we're basically looking at Gibbs or Bijan first, but Bijan, Gibbs, JSN are all gone. Then we're at that kind of midpoint where there's going to be some receivers going. A-Chain's going to go, Kincaid, like that range. As a contender, I'm probably still keeping Swift. If you have decent depth, then what I would probably rather do is look at another position of need, maybe receiver or tight end, and trade Swift for a player that will help me at one of those positions this year, because it's tough to know if these rookies are going to be able to help you this year outside of those first 3 guys. So I would rather have Swift, I think, at this point on a contending team. Rebuild, I get it. Rebuild, I would probably go for the pick, but contender like you're at, I'm staying pat. Steve asks, I have a question about a dynasty league I'm in. We have some vets in our rookie draft pool. I have the 112 and 201. Need to pick between 2 of these guys. Akers, A-Chain, and Spears. Also have the 101 and CMC and Swift. So here's what I'm going to say. If you've listened to the show, which you're here, so I'm assuming you have, or the Dynasty Nerd show, you guys know how I feel about Spears. I love Spears. I think on talent, he's like borderline, he's right there as the running back 3, even pushing Gibbs. So I love Spears talent-wise. But right now, people are pushing him way down draft boards. Like, I've even seen a couple leagues where people got him in the 4th, which, by the way, is ridiculous. But I consistently am seeing go in the back end of the 2nd round. So that 207 to 211 range pretty consistently. Sometimes he's slipped into the 3rd and whatnot. So the good news is I think you could take whoever you like most, which for me, in this situation, A-Chain, take him at 112 and then trade back if you wanted to into the later 2nd round, pick up another 2nd in next year's class, and then still get Spears. So even though I have a player ranked higher than consensus, I'm not going to overdraft that player just to prove a point. I'm going to let the board fall to me and just reap the value. So I think that's what you can do there. I think you can reap the value of Spears, get him in the late 2nd round then, instead of having to use that higher draft capital on him. Ronnie asks, trade question, Superflex, tight end premium, rebuilding team. Sell Josh Allen and Mark Andrews for the 23, 102, 105, an early 24 first, and Devonta Smith. I don't think that's a bad return, but I don't think it's enough for those 2 players, because basically what we're looking at here in Superflex tight end premium, you're basically looking at probably Anthony Richardson, Dalton Kincaid, the early 24 first. It depends where that is. That could be Caleb Williams, which is huge, or Marvin Harrison, or a guy like that. And we're actually going to be doing with Dennis Bennett in a little bit, we're going to be doing a 2 early 24 mock draft for your Dynasty League. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be pretty sweet, and that will help with this question. And Smith, but arguably, you should be able to get close to that just for those 3 picks, just for Josh Allen. So then you're basically just getting Smith for Mark Andrews and a tight end premium. I don't think that's quite enough. So while I don't like that, I don't hate that move. And if I was pressed, I would be willing to do that, but I think you can get more there. I think you can get, a couple seconds sprinkled on top, or, another upside player you like, or something like that. So I don't think that's a bad offer, but I think you can do a little bit better. Michael Anthony says, I'd hope for Kincaid or Addison at the 105. Love Addison to the Vikings. Yeah, Addison to the Vikings, good situation there. I think he's going to be exactly like what we talked about on the podcast. Perfect opportunity to be a number 2 receiver, which that's what he is. He's a number 2 receiver, and I think he'll be a very, very good one. I don't think he's ever going to be a number 1, and especially, obviously, in Minnesota, he's not. Justin Jefferson is going to be that guy forever and ever. Amen. But Addison's a really good player, and I think he's going to be really solid, and I think he's going to be a solid fantasy football wide receiver 3, and maybe even sneak into the wide receiver 2 range at times. So I do really like him there. Fork said, I thought one of the winners in the draft was Brian Robinson. What's your thoughts on him this year? Yeah, I haven't talked about Brian Robinson a lot. And there's a lot of running backs that ended up coming out better than we thought they were going to. And Brian Robinson is another one where he sneakily did well. They didn't really add anything this offseason at all at the position. So it's still going to be him and Antonio Gibson for the most part. And he has a chance to really take even a larger workload because obviously with, getting shot in the leg, he missed quite a bit of time and some opportunity to really get his footing in that offense. And when he came back, he was good. I don't think he was great, but he was good. And this is an opportunity for him to really push that forward. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good opportunity. Just a reminder, in about 4 minutes, Peter's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about this NFL draft, and we'll still even answer some questions if you guys have them. So we'll do our best there. Mike Nordstrom asked, my league always argues about rosters too big versus too small. What's the average number of bench spots and taxi squats in your favorite dynasty leagues? So my favorite leagues have a minimum of 25 spots. Absolute minimum. I would make an argument for, with taxi and everything. What I like is either open it up big and have 30, 32, 35 roster spot. 35 is a lot. But 30, 32, that range I think is good. Or do 25 and then have a taxi squad for the guys in their first 2 years and have that be unlimited. Just whoever, but it can only be players you draft. If they get traded or anything like that, you can't do that. Once you take them off your taxi squad, you can't put them back on. But that's my favorite there. Josh asks, 12-team 1-point PPR super flex. I'm trying to trade for the 102 and need quarterbacks. Currently own the 104. I'm offering Elijah Mitchell, 112, 204, or 112 and a 24 first. Is either a fair offer? It depends where the 24 first is. I think that would be a pretty fair offer for that if it's on the upper end. But then at that point, I don't know if I want to give it up if it's on the upper end. So if it's a mid to late, I think 2 firsts to get you up into 102 is pretty fair. So I think that's more fair than the 112, 204 and Mitchell. I don't think Mitchell carries a ton of value right now with CMC there. I know that they'll still use him, but I don't think people view him as somebody with much upside. So I think that would be the more fair offer. But if you can get away with the first one, absolutely do it. Josh Anderson asks, at what 2023 rookie pick would you trade for a random 24 first? I'm looking at right around the 108 range. I'm definitely not doing it in the top 6 in Superflex. Probably 108, 109 in that range is probably where I'd feel pretty comfortable trading for a random 24 first. And when you say random, we really don't know where this team's going to land. If I think that that's going to be a late one, I don't want to do that. But if I think it's going to be a top 3 pick, well then, shoot, I might be ready to make a great offer for that. So that's a tough call. I might be willing to move it up to like a 104, 105. Well, it's tough because I do like JSN and Gibbs, but yeah. So I think 108, 109 is what I'm thinking. Superflex PPR, DeAndre Swift or Najee Harris. And while I'm answering that, I think Peter is about to join us. So Peter's going to be on in just a second. I'm going to go Harris here. Swift, we don't know what the landing spot is going to look like exactly. We know it's with Philadelphia. We know it's a good situation, but we don't necessarily know what his touch share is going to be, how he's going to fit exactly. Najee, we know he's getting a ton of carries. We know what he's going to do in that offense, and he's slightly younger. So I'll go Najee. And we've got our very own Peter Bartausky. How's it going, Pete?
Going great. And yeah, I'm going Najee Harris. 10 out of 10.
You're going Najee too?
I love that. Yep. But yeah, I'm doing great.
So Data Fork said you have to be done in time for the Kraken game, right?
No, so interesting fact is I really try to like hockey, and I hate hockey,
You hate
which
hockey?
is really frustrating. Hate's too strong of a word,
Woo.
but I can't watch it. I can't follow it, and it's frustrating because Seattle's good, right? But also I'm in North Carolina too, and are the Canes still in it?
I don't know a ton about hockey, to be honest.
I think the Canes are still Sedated Fork. Are the Canes still in the playoffs?
It looks like Heavy T said yes, they are in it still, and they're playing the Devils.
Okay, so it's both of the teams that I would root for are pretty good, and then like all the other teams I root for in real life are super mid. So I really lost my opportunity there. But
Yeah, well, fun fact, I actually played a couple years of roller hockey back in the day, simply because I loved the Mighty Ducks. That was
I've
the only
never
reason.
seen the Mighty Ducks. That could actually also be the reason why I don't like hockey.
See, there you go. Watch the Mighty Ducks. Watch the Flying V, which really actually makes no sense, but watch it anyway, and it's part of the movie. You'll see when you watch it. But Peter, we didn't get you in here to talk about that though. We brought you in to talk about this NFL draft, and we have some trades. We'll mix in some trades while we're doing this. And actually, let's start with one here. Henry asks, last year people were saying trade the 105 or 106 for a random 24 first, and what a disaster that was. People were passing on Olave for a random 23 first and a single quarterback, and that turned out horrible. So it really wasn't a question. He would just wanted to rant about that.
It's true.
He's not incorrect.
I remember people saying trade your picks, your first round picks past like 1/6 for 2023 seconds because they're worth that. They're worth a first. Like this class is so good, it's going to be worth, like, you're getting better value than like the 106, 107, 108.
Yeah,
in his 2022 class.
In his FFPC leagues, he says he's debating between Gibbs and JSN. Sounds like these were more rebuilding teams because he said he tanked. In a tank situation, you taking Gibbs, you taking JSN. Who you taking?
Well, so I was even thinking about this right before I hopped on. I am about to flip and put JSN in front for me than Gibbs.
I could see that.
He's just, I look at Gibbs and I like him a lot, and I think he'll be very good. But what Jackson Smith and Ajigba can do on the football field is sick, and exactly what the Seahawks need, to be honest. So short term and long term, I think he offers some really good upside. But I especially in a rebuild situation, I want to go wide receiver. But
I agree.
What was so nice about the Lions running back position last year was all the touchdowns that they scored. They were third in total rushing touchdowns scored last year. And I don't know how much, that's going to carry over for Gibbs.
It's going to be Montgomery for the most part. That'll probably get a lot of that.
And then I hear, like, there was just an alert that just said they're talking about using him in the slot more, which is true. But they also have Amon-Ra St. Brown there. So, and they drafted Laporta. So it's not like they have a bunch of slot targets to go around. Sure. I think for their team, he'll be a good weapon. But I think people, and it's very easy for me to see, like, okay, this team drafted a running back in the top 12 of the NFL draft. He'll be a workhorse. And in reality, I don't know, is this going to be like a frustrating relationship with the Lions? I don't know. But with JSN, I think just for me, it's a perfect fit. And I love that player. And before the draft, he was my 105 in Superflex.
No Seahawks bias in this, right?
No.
Yeah, none. All right.
Not at all.
I would actually go in his situation. I would go JSN as well. For me, it's pretty cut and dry. If you're a contender, I think you probably go Gibbs. If you're not a contender, I think you probably go JSN, and that's what I would be doing 99% of the time. So
how often do you just go like, I want to pick the best guy and just try to trade him?
I think you always take the best player available, always, no matter what. The problem here is I don't know who's better between those two. Like,
okay, so it's a toss-up.
That's how close it is for me.
Okay.
Like, if it was okay, you're in 5 random drafts, just startups. Like,
Yep.
I would probably go 5 and 5. Like I really don't feel super strongly one way or the other. But for me, it's always best player available no matter what. So like I was debating with somebody tonight. They were talking about taking Gibbs at 2 in a super flex. I was like, look, I get that you might need the running back, but you should take the quarterback. The quarterback always carries more value, especially, with how high people are on Richardson right now. Take the quarterback because he has another pick at 4. I was like, you could still take another quarterback there. That's what I would do. Or you could trade back one spot, get the running back. So, but that's the thing. I think sometimes we do get too caught up in, but I need a fill in the blank. Yeah. Okay, well, draft the best player or just trade that pick straight up for a player that you like at that position.
Richardson, in a mock that we did today, Richardson went 108 in a startup super flex.
Wait, say that again?
He went 108 in a startup.
Anthony Richardson went 108? Yep. Holy cow.
Yep.
I mean, look, I get it. He's awesome. Like, he really is awesome.
Yep.
But I'm even struggling, like, at the end of the second round with him. Like, I hate missing early in drafts. That's so hard for me to do. Yep. I get it. I get it. But that's tough. All right, let's touch on some of the things that happened this weekend in the NFL draft. And we're going to focus obviously more on the ones that affect the fantasy output, right? So at the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young goes. Not a surprise. That's basically what we heard all the way from the last 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the draft. It was Stroud for a little while there, and then the last couple of weeks it was pretty clear it was going to be Bryce Young. What are your thoughts on Bryce Young as far as his long-term outlook? Can he be a steady quarterback for fantasy? And what kind of range is his, likely outcomes?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was thinking about this today, and I think I've already kind of told you this, but I am becoming sick of the word ceiling. Because we truly don't know with these players. If we could project ceiling well, Richard Sherman wouldn't have went in the 5th round. Stuff like that. Tariq Woolen, Seahawks bias, but Tariq Woolen wouldn't have went in the 5th round. Sometimes people pop, and a lot of times it's just behind the scenes stuff, or just they could hit a growth spurt or something, I guess. But so with Young, I keep. People always have the high floor, low ceiling comp for him, which I agree with that. Like, I'm not going to say that he has, Anthony Richardson ceiling, but I think his ceiling can be still, I think he can be a top 5 quarterback for fantasy football.
Ooh, okay.
He can be that. I truly believe he can be a Drew Brees type player. Russell Wilson type player. He's very smart. He makes plays that reminds me the most about Mahomes in college. He does a lot of like those scrambling plays, and he's able to like make those kind of like shortstop Derek Jeter type throws.
Sure.
But he also doesn't do the Mahomes throws that are like, wow, that was a really stupid play, but it worked out.
Yeah.
So it's different. Like, I'm not comparing him to Mahomes, but he's just a natural gifted football player.
I think you're a little bit higher on Young than I am.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad player, and I think he's incredibly smart. Makes a lot of good decisions, but I don't know that we're going to get a ton of rushing from him, especially at the NFL level, where his frame doesn't suggest that he wants to take much of a beating. and he's not an elite athlete either. So I just wonder if there's going to be enough rushing floor, and at least in the relatively soon future, if there'll be enough weapons around him, because to be a top 5 guy without having 400 plus rushing yards is really hard to do. So you're going to have to throw for a ridiculous amount of passing yards. I just don't see that in the near future, but I can see like 6 to 10 range. I feel comfortable saying like his ceiling is in that range, but I don't know about top 5. It's possible. We've had crazy things happen, but I would.
It's going to be one of those things that he'll need things to go right. You know, he would need
like 3 guys.
Marvin Harrison. Yeah, but he would need like Marvin Harrison
gets
to like
hurt.
win up on it.
He needs Allen to get hurt, and he needs Lamar to get hurt, and then maybe.
Yeah, but like I look at like Joe Burrow was quarterback 4 this year. Kirk Cousins was quarterback 6. You know, so it's like I look at quarterbacks that are like that aren't super mobile. They need pieces around him. I mean, Mingo's not going to propel him to a top 5 finish. Though I do love Mingo.
I do like Mingo though.
But yeah, I agree. I don't think he will be a consistent top 5 quarterback, but he will be in that 6 to 12 range consistently, and he might have seasons. I can't project quarterbacks, but he might have seasons inside the top 5. And
I mean, it's entirely possible. We've seen, crazy things. I think Carson Wentz had a season inside the top 5. So, you never know for sure. A couple quick questions. But real quick, I do want to get back to something I said just right before you came on. There was a question about at one point am I comfortable trading for a random 24 first, and I mentioned like the 8-9 range. I forgot to clarify our point. I am never going to just trade a first round pick this year for a pick next year unless I think it is a top like 3 pick. If I'm trading for just one that's random, I follow kind of what the NFL draft does. If you want to move into this year's class from next year's class, like you're skipping up a year, you got to give me something on top. So if I'm at 110, I still want a second round pick back, whether it's in this year's draft or next year's draft. I need something else in return. So when I say I'm willing to trade for a random 24 first, yes, I am, but I also want a little bit more on top. I don't want just that. And I forgot to clarify that point. So I did want to make sure that I made that clear. Sedative Fork asks, in Superflex, and you are at the 107, are you trying hard to trade out of that spot? And for me, yes, absolutely. I would feel much comfortable drafting at 109, 110, because I think you're getting the same caliber player that you're going to get at 107. I think there is a clear tier there. And then there's another tier from like 111 to like 204, where a lot of those guys are about the same value too. So I hate being the first one in a tier. I love being like the last one or second to last one in a tier.
Yeah. If I can trade back and get an A-Chain Mingo or a Kincaid, like I'm super happy with that.
Exactly.
Or Tajay Spears.
Drew, or actually, let's go back to Henry real quick. He said that. So going back to his question about should he go with JSN, should he go with Gibbs?
So many picks.
He has like a butt ton of picks. He's struggling with should he take Gibbs, knowing that there's a possibility JSN could fall to 4, which I think is unlikely, but I mean, I guess it's relatively possible, or Gibbs at taking JSN above Gibbs. I still think you go with the guy that you think is the highest rated player on your board. Yeah. But for me, more of a rebuild, that's probably going to be JSN. But take the highest rated guy on your board. If it is Gibbs, and you clearly say that I like him more than I like JSN, then take your guy. Like, don't miss out on your guy just trying to a little bit here and there, or better yet, package 4 and 12 and move up to 3, and then you get both.
And that's a good trade. If I can get JSN and Gibbs, like that's a great draft right there. You don't need to draft anyone else.
Yep. So yeah, it stinks you'll miss out on Mingo at 12 or somebody like that, but to be able to get up and get JSN, I think it's worth it.
Drew, question, Garrett.
Yeah.
So do you think the difference between Gibbs and the running back 3 in this class will be bigger than JSN and the wide receiver 2 in this class?
I think it's pretty similar for me.
Okay.
I do like A-Chain and Spears. The wide receiver's tough because there is a decent group there in that second tier.
Yeah.
I do like JSN just so much more than all those other guys.
Yeah,
So,
he's not so much like Robinson, but he's
Right.
close to that.
right. There's a big tier gap. So that's hard because I think both of them are pretty big gaps in between.
Yeah.
Drew asks, I have 104 and 1.6 Superflex contract style. I'm pretty high on the middle guys, A-Chain, Miller, Flowers, long term. This league is newer and trades are uncommon. At what point do you not force it? Look, you got to stick with your board. We do our best to inform you as to what we think your board should look like, what players we like, what players we don't like. But at the end of the day, you stick to your board. If truly A-Chain is the guy for you at 1.6, now for most people, that's going to be JSN or Gibbs that are going to be at 6 in a super flex league.
Yeah.
But if he's truly your guy, then take him. Like
Yeah.
I have no issue with that. I don't think that it would be my pick or my favorite pick, but you go with your board. You dance with the ones that brought you.
Yep.
So as much as you do the best you can to trade back and still gain extra value, at the end of the day, if you truly believe that A-Chain is better than Gibbs at 1.6, then take A-Chain. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, that's why this is why we have like the film room and stuff. At the end of the day, the film room would be a giant waste of time if you watched a bunch of film and then just went off someone's rankings. Like that, the biggest draw to Dynasty fantasy football is you get to draft your guy. You are the GM. So yeah, go get your guy. Sometimes that can be a bad piece of advice, but it's also just, go get him. A-Chain, if A-Chain hits, he has around the same upside that a Gibbs does. So
yeah. I mean, we've seen guys of his size and his style do it. I mean, the most obvious glaring one is Austin Eckler. Mostly pass catching, does it a lot on speed. It's not a lot between the tackles. I would argue A-Chain might be better between the tackles. Obviously, Eckler's a better receiving back at this point in his career, but so it can be done. Surface Hayes says, "What's up, Nerd Herd? How's it going, buddy?"
Hey.
Superflex tight end premium 101 plus Purdy versus T. Higgins 104 and a 24 first. The 24 first is likely mid to early. He's saying it's hard for me to want to move on from Bijan, but I've always been a Higgins believer. That's I'm gonna let you take this one first, Peter. What do you think?
Okay, let's break it down. So you got Purdy in the 104, let's just say. So that's Bryce versus Purdy, and I'm taking Bryce there.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of the rest is the Higgins in the 2024 first, likely mid to early. But it's hard to tell. If it's not for sure early, then we don't know.
Right.
You can get lucky or so. Oh man, Higgins is worth 2 first, correct?
I would say 2 like mid to late first. Yeah.
Okay. So you're getting really good value there. You get in about, let's say 3 9/10 2023 first value, because I'm not counting the 2024 first at the same value. But I would go on the second side.
You would go on the T. Higgins side?
Yeah, just for value.
I think I would too. And that's tough because I never want to move on from Bijan. Bijan is truly that guy. But I mean, if you look at it as Bryce Young versus Purdy, I mean, I think it's pretty clearly Bryce. So that right there is huge. So as tough as it is, I'm probably going T. Higgins in the picks.
Purdy's not the for sure. If you fast forwarded a year from now and told me Purdy's not the starter, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean it's totally in the realm of possibility that Trey Lance figures it out. I'm never been a Trey Lance guy, but
did you hear a report from a 49ers coach that said that Sam Darnold is the most talented thrower of the ball that he's ever worked with?
Oh my gosh. Well, you look at the quarterbacks they've had in San Francisco over the past,
it doesn't say much, but
not a lot of great throwers of the football.
Yep.
So, yeah, but Darnold sees ghosts, so that always makes it tough. Dan says he loves the show. Keep it up. Good work. I appreciate that. And Surface says he appreciates the feedback. Okay, let's get back into the NFL draft. Yep. CJ Stroud then went to the Houston Texans. This was kind of up in the air up until the draft.
Yep.
Some said it might be Will Anderson. Some said it might be CJ Stroud. Some said they might be trading out. There was all types of rumors swirling around. Well, then they just were like, screw it. We want both. So they get CJ Stroud at 2, and then they get their guy at Will Anderson right after that. Stroud's a guy that I've gotten to watch quite a bit. I think he improved a lot this year. And especially when you watch the biggest game of his season, biggest game of his career against Georgia, he played his best football. And that was, I mean, look at all the guys that have been drafted on that defense. And there's still some players that will be drafted in the future that are still there. That's Eagles it's a dang good, the Eagles. Just look at the Eagles. That's the team. It's a dang good defense.
Yep.
He improved a lot. I think he's a better athlete than he's been given credit for, but still not a guy that I think is going to get 400, 500, 600 rushing yards. But I think he's going to do more on the ground than we originally anticipated. And he's just so accurate. He's just so accurate with the football. I think he's one of the safest quarterbacks. I think he's the safest in this class, and I think he's one of the safer ones that we've had over the past couple seasons. So I feel good about that situation. I think Houston has found their franchise quarterback. Do you believe that as well, Peter?
So I honestly think that Young is the safest quarterback in this class. But so with Stroud, here's my concern. Okay. So let's say Brock Purdy gets traded to another NFL team.
Okay.
The biggest question is, can he work outside that system? He did great in the 49er system.
I'm not sure what this has to do about CJ Stroud, but I'm assuming you're coming around to it.
Let me get here.
Okay.
It's the same thing with the Stroud issue. Is I almost equate the Ohio State system to like the 49er system. Is like it's very simple, and there's usually one guy just wide open, and you can hit him. If you're Stroud, you're super accurate and you can hit him, and you have an awesome offensive line. So I have questions about his processing. And I think that
I haven't heard that a lot. I'm curious why you say that.
His processing?
Yeah.
Well, first off, his score. But also,
did you see the report that followed up about that though?
I saw like multiple kind of reports. Was there an official one?
Yeah, even what's his name, Ryan Day, the head coach of the Buckeyes, actually met with the guys that put together that score and say like, we don't know where that came from. Like that was not a leak from us. Those scores aren't accurate. Like we don't know where that came from.
What's the score then?
We don't know. We don't know what the score is.
I'm assuming the other score wasn't like a 95 because they wouldn't have released that. But anyway, that's speculation now.
Yeah,
I guess
we really don't know. So we can't base it on that.
But his film, I would say, is not incredible. Like he's not making multiple reads, and that's a question mark for me.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
In the sense of often his first read was open.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But there are several occasions where you see him processing through his reads. That's why he didn't run a lot, was because he stayed in the pocket and processed through his reads. So I don't know. I don't know that I'm with you on that one.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, it's not so much, it's hard because it's not necessarily a negative for me. It's a question mark. So
Okay.
with Young, it's not a question mark. Just with his how smart he is,
Right.
and just how he can read the field. And I do really place a lot of emphasis on that as a quarterback. But it's another thing that is like, honestly, I'm willing to be wrong on a quarterback.
Sure.
To me, it's such a 50-50 coin flip almost. Like, there's so much that goes into scouting a quarterback that I don't have access to.
There's a lot.
It is something that I'm willing to kind of be a little bit more water with my opinions.
Sure. For me,
but,
if I was gonna say the reason that I don't think Stroud could be that guy, because I do think he's a very safe quarterback. I think he's gonna hit. But if I was going to say the reason that I wouldn't want him on my fantasy football team, it would be more because I don't know what his ceiling is. Like, I don't know that he can, similar to Bryce Young, I don't know that we're going to see him be athlete enough to be this top end quarterback. So I could see him being the forever quarterback 16 to quarterback 10, which is not bad. But
a better Kenny Pickett. He can run faster than Kenny Pickett. He has better accuracy than Kenny Pickett, but kind of that.
Derek Carr's the guy that kind of came to mind for me.
Yeah.
A guy that has always been really solid, but has never really been like exciting, never has really like super helped your team. He is if he's your quarterback 2, but not if he's your quarterback 1. So I don't know. Lots of questions there. Lots of different things. We've got, man, Peter, this time's flying, man. We're doing good. But I had a lot more that I wanted to get to with you.
Oh man.
Real quickly, a couple guys I want to touch on.
Yep.
I already talked a lot about Anthony Richardson. I don't think we need to touch on that. Bijan Robinson, clear 101. Was there a better landing spot for him than Atlanta?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Yep.
Done and done. We've talked about Gibbs a lot with these trades. So let's get up to the receivers after Jackson Smith and Jigba. Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. Those 3 guys, I've seen them in a myriad of different orders in the draft. Typically, I've seen Addison first, which overall I would agree with. He was my wide receiver 3 in the class. I gave him a little bit of a bump based on him going to Minnesota, and I gave a slight downtick to Zay Flowers going to Baltimore. So they flipped spots there. And then Johnston, I get why people like him. He's got the size, he's got the speed, and he's got Justin Herbert. So, those are 3 things to really like. But I had some question marks about his film. For you, first of all, are those the next 3 wide receivers that come off the board? And if so, what order?
So it goes Jordan Addison 1, Jonathan Mingo 1B.
Okay, so Mingo jumps in there, which he does jump ahead of Johnston for me as well.
Yeah, and then for my home run pick, I am going Johnston over Zay Flowers.
Yeah,
because if his this is the crazy thing about Johnston is his sophomore tape actually had better contested catches. So if you go back 2 seasons, he actually had. He almost was good at the catch point. Yeah. And so it's like so if he mixes the 2 on that Chargers offense, I like that a lot. I look at Zay Flowers and I don't know.
You've never been a Zay Flowers guy, though.
I mean, he's always been in my top 5 though.
Okay. All right.
But I still don't, and he's solidly my wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. He just that Raven spot just kind of made me sad.
There we go. All right, Peter, we ran out of time. We had so much more I wanted to get to, but we also answered some trade questions. It's always a blast. All is good.
Yep.
Peter, thank you so much for joining me. Remind the folks real quick where they can find you and what you are up to.
Well, so you can find me, let's see, right here on Twitter, Pete Bartausky. I am starting. We're starting to do a little bit more mock drafts, startup mock drafts. We're going to start trying to get some ADP from that. So I'll be doing lots of those. So follow me there. I usually give a heads up when I am about to start doing them, and then I post those on our Dynasty Nerds Twitter. Other than that, I just do a lot of things. Dennis and I, who's about to hop on, we do a trade show every Tuesday night on the Nerd Herd Discord channel. So that's always a blast.
Another perk of joining the herd.
Yep, so many perks. But other than that, you'll just see me around.
Just see him around. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining me, buddy.
Thanks, Garrett. Bye.
See ya. All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break. When we get back, there are more questions to answer. If you want to get a trade question in or a draft question in, feel free to put it in the chat now. I'm going to get to as many of those as I can. And then at around 10:15, Dennis Bennett's going to be joining. And we are going to be doing a way too early 2024 rookie mock draft. That's right. Picks 1 through 12. We're going to go through them. We're going to talk about these players, guys that we're excited about, guys that we're not sure about. Should be a blast. We will be back in just a few minutes.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.
The word genius is there. Bob Glover, it describes him. Bob, so when's the last time that Twitter defeated you? Because I've been defeated by Twitter today.
I'll tell you how Twitter defeated me one time. I had the mistaken impression that the year that Troy Polamalu won the Defensive Player of the Year, it looked like it was going to go to Clay Matthews Jr., and I tweeted it. And there was a guy on the media bus. He was like, oh, yeah, he's got it, a guy I trust. I won't tell you who it was, but his initials are Mike Garafalo. So I went with it. Got a DM from Rich Eisen, NFL Network. He goes, you sure about that? I go, oh, man. Oh, I just got this wave because like accuracy to me is really important.
Yeah.
So I'm literally on the media bus. We're just getting back from media day. We are slipping and sliding in Dallas. It's snowing. I get off the bus. I open my laptop. I'm hunched over, and I just like literally people are passing me. Bob, what's wrong? And it was Polamalu, and Adam Schefter had retweeted me. Trey Wingo had retweeted me. I'm like, oh, I'm dead.
So when it's Polamalu, then how do you handle that? Like, what was the subsequent tweet
I think
afterward?
I said, got some bad Twitter info. I didn't put Garafalo's name on there. I had to
10 years later, you can out him. I like that. Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't mind that. He knows the stories. So.
Yeah.
He actually said to me, hey, Bob, I think you might have jumped the gun on that. I was like, oh, crap. There we go.
Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Would Dion bench Shedeur?
I don't think he would.
Like, how bad would it have to be? Because we've seen horrendous quarterback play from this Colorado team for the last, 5 years? JT Shroud, Brandon Lewis, just terrible quarterback play. Like, they were 131st, which is dead last in pass EPA per play. Obviously, it will be better, but how bad does it have to be for him to bench his own son? Like, I'm not sure he will ever either, like, especially with the attitude that he came in with.
If they don't get Rashada, who do they bench him for this year anyway? I don't know that there's another answer on that roster that you go to. They don't really have a guy behind him, so I don't even know if we would know the answer to that until the next year, assuming that he doesn't declare for the draft, he returns, they bring somebody else that's competent and behind him.
If they're going to do this the Lincoln Riley way, next year would be the class to bring somebody in. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a third-year player, so he's going to play 2023. I don't think he's declaring for the 2024 NFL draft, so he's going to play in 2024 and then declare for the 2025 NFL draft. And let's remember this, he hasn't had a full recruiting cycle at Colorado. He will have that next recruiting cycle, so maybe he could get one of these class of 2024 quarterbacks there to come to Colorado.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Better Sports Network.
Welcome back in, Dynasty Nerds, Better Sports Network. We are having fun. Peter Bartausky joined us just before the break, and we talked NFL draft and answered a few questions. And before I get to more questions, because I want to get to your guys' questions. I want to talk through these trades. I want to talk through the draft picks. I want to do all that. I need to tell you guys that right now you can get all pro access to Fantasy Alarm and unlock all features, including all fantasy football and betting content, plus the award-winning DFS playbook covering 10 different sports. For a limited time, get all of this for 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50. That's ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. So get started today with that free trial. That's promo code ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. All right, let's get back into some of these trade questions here. Steve F says, following up to the previous question, 112 and 201 in Superflex tight end premium. Where do you place Kincaid compared to A-Chain and Spears? And right now in a Superflex tight end premium, I would probably emphasize him before those guys. He is a fantastic prospect. He got the first round draft capital. He got the great landing spot with Josh Allen, and he is that receiving tight end. He's not going to block. That is not his skill set. He is going to be going out and catching the football. He would be my first priority out of those guys in a tight end premium league. I would go out and get him first. What is it? Gyrodactyl? I like that name. That's pretty nifty there. Trading back from the 103 to the 105. What else on top of 105 should I ask for? My quarterback room is Herbert, Tua, Howell, Tannehill, and Heineke. So I'm assuming this is super flex. So you're basically trading out of a quarterback spot into the spot where you get to choose between JSN and Gibbs. I would probably see, because right now you have to factor in they're taking a quarterback. A quarterback in super flex leagues are gold. So I'm pushing to try to get there first next year. If I have to throw my second next year on top of it to make it work, I'm willing to do that. But that's what I'm going for, because I'm not moving out of the quarterback range into the other good skill position guys for cheap. Like if you are moving up to get a quarterback, quarterbacks are the most valuable, most important piece of super flex leagues. So you need to make sure that you are getting good value out of that. So that's what I would do. I would be asking for his first. If he's not willing to do that, maybe throw in your second next year, and then you will get 105 in his first next year. Tuckleberry Finn says, if you are at 106, are you okay getting any three of those receivers? And I think he's referring to Addison, Flowers, or Quentin Johnston. I'm not a big Johnston guy. I would be taking Mingo ahead. But yeah, I'm fine with it. I would be looking at potentially A-Chain there as well. I'd probably have Addison right around or over A-Chain. But I would probably take A-Chain over Zay, Flowers, and Mingo and Johnston personally. All right. Terrace, Too Nice Gaming says, would you take AR-15 at 103 in a 1 QB rookie draft? I'm stacked at wide receiver, and I don't think Gibbs will fall to me. I have the 201 and 203 for running back depth. For me, I talked about it earlier. I'm big on value-based drafting. So whoever the top player on your board is, whoever's the most valuable player to you, that's who you take. Chances are, I don't think in a 1 QB league, Richardson's that guy at that point. If you really think that, go ahead and do it. But I think that you could trade back into 106, 107 range and possibly even get an additional first round pick and still get AR-15 there. Or, even if you have to trade it completely and get, next year's first and a player, you still might even have a chance to get him at 201, or you could trade up from 201 to, whatever. So I probably would not go with AR-15 there personally. Shane Greer says, in a 1 QB league, would you give the 102 and 103 and get the 101 and 201? I would. I would do that. It's a lot to give up Gibbs and JSN, but I really think Bijan is that true alpha 3-down difference maker for the next 7-8 years. And that just doesn't come every day at running back. And at 201, you're still getting a decent player there. That's not a throwaway pick. Yes, obviously it looks a little better in Superflex, but you're still getting a good player there. You mentioned you still have the 105, so there's some other guys that you will be able to get as well. So that's what I would probably be doing there. I would probably be looking to take the 101 and 201. Benjamin says, what do you think of the idea of expanding the bench by 6 for the summer until the final cut down day? I haven't heard of anybody doing that personally. I don't hate that though. Because right now that you're rostering 5th round picks, 6th round picks that you don't even know if they're making a team. So to have that extra flexibility, or you want to take a flyer on this backup quarterback, and we'll see if he's actually the backup or not. It might be actually this guy is the backup. There's all those different things that can happen. So I haven't heard of that personally, but I don't hate that. I don't hate that concept. Cavis3 says, I have an offer for 102, 112 for my 104 and 107. I'm in a rebuild and very weak at quarterback, and running back is I'm very weak at quarterback and running back. Is it worth moving up to get my choice of quarterback? I also have 109, 201, and 204. For me personally, once you're at the 107, there is a little bit of a teardrop to the 112, but I don't think it's huge. I think the biggest teardrop is 106 to 107. I think that's the biggest teardrop in the draft. So to move back isn't a huge deal to me. But that being said, it really comes down to how you feel about Anthony Richardson. If you do believe that he will hit, then you need to get 102. But there's a lot of risk there. And at 104, you're still getting a good quarterback that is safe. And CJ Stroud, that's one of the things we talked about. I think he's a very safe quarterback. Could he miss? Sure. Anybody could miss. We thought for a second maybe Trevor Lawrence had missed, which would have been crazy. It's possible for anyone to miss. So it really comes down to, are you wanting to take that swing? Are you wanting that top tier guy, that guy that could eventually be in the same tier as Mahomes and Allen and Herbert and Burrow and Hurts and all of those guys? Do you want to take a swing at that, or do you want to play it safe? Because I don't think the drop off from 107 to 112 is huge. So that doesn't stress me out too much. So if you think Anthony Richardson's that guy, I think it's worth it to move up. Oliver Ventura said, I took Young at 102, Stroud at 104, and JSN at 16. Rebuild team in Superflex. Punted the startup 2 years ago. I don't know if there's a question with that, Oliver, but I have no issue with that. I probably would have taken Richardson ahead of Young, but I like Stroud at 4. I like JSN at 6. I think both are great players, and I think both have really long futures ahead of them. So I like that. I like that deal. All right. Go ahead and get to the rest of your questions in. I do have some more things that we didn't get to cover with Peter that I wanted to cover in this draft. And one of the big things, let's go with the elephant in the room. Okay. I've heard a lot about this on Twitter. I've heard a lot about this just from people texting me different things. It's my love for Tyjae Spears. I've come on this show. I have come on the Dynasty Nerds podcast. I have visited other people's shows, talked about how much I've loved Spears. I still love Spears. I probably won't take him as early as I think he should go based on his talent alone. But I'm still totally good with drafting him. And I've seen him go the third round. I've even heard of him going to the fourth round. Look, if the Titans were comfortable enough with his medical evaluation to take him third overall, that tells you that they think he's going to be just fine for the time period that they're wanting to use him. Will that be 6-7 years? Probably not with that knee. But if they're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. And based on his talent, he is a top 3 running back in this class on just talent alone. That situation with Derrick Henry, that could resolve itself very quickly. First of all, there have been rumors that he might get traded. But even if not, he's 29 years old on the last year of his deal. I don't think that's somebody that's going to be at that position much longer. So with all of that being said, I've heard a lot about it. I know people are concerned. What do I want that to be the case with his knee? No. I would love for it to be perfectly healthy and not have to stress about it. That's not the world we live in, unfortunately. And so you're getting a discount. Now you get him cheaper. So a few more trades have come in. Ryan says, I traded the 105, 112, and Donta Foreman for 102 and 207 pre-draft. I think I like the deal more after the draft. What are your thoughts? He says this is super flex, 12-team half PPR. Definitely like this deal after the draft. Here's the reason. Especially if you're a team that needs a quarterback, you're not getting a quarterback at 5. We originally thought that there would probably be 4 quarterbacks that go there. Well, Will Levis didn't go in the first round. He fell to the second round. So you moved into a situation where you weren't going to get a quarterback to a situation where not only did you get a quarterback, but now you have your choice of the quarterbacks. You want to play it a little more safe and take Stroud or Young? Cool. You want to swing for the fences? Like I think I'm going to because I love that landing spot so much. With Anthony Richardson at 2, you have that opportunity to do that too. So absolutely, I think I like that deal even better post-draft. 207, by the way, perfect range for Spears. All right. Oliver Ventura says, Super chat 10 USD. I don't know what that means. But I took Young at 102, Stroud at 104, and JSN at 106. Rebuild team and Superflex. What do you think? Yes. Yeah, I wasn't sure what your question was when I was talking about it earlier, but I do like all of those picks. Like I said, I would probably take Richardson instead of Young, but Stroud, the perfect pick at 4, JSN, the perfect pick at 6. You got right before the tier break, getting JSN. JSN, I think people are down on his landing spot. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We've seen whoever their quarterback has been able to hold 2 fantasy relevant wide receivers. And look, Tyler Lockett's 31 years old. He is not going to be around much longer. All it takes is a single injury, and all of a sudden he could be the number 1 guy there. He's going to work the middle of the field, which DK and Tyler Lockett haven't been able to do successfully. Yes, Tyler Lockett's worked it, but he doesn't do anything after the catch. JSN's going to do a lot after the catch. I think it's a great landing spot. Perfect situation, ideal scenario for JSN. So I absolutely love that. All right, Corey Daniels asks, currently I have 102, 204, 207, 305, and 307. He said he's working with Fields, Stevenson, Pollard, A. Brown. So I'm assuming A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, St. Brown, Hawkinson, bench Connor, wide receiver Dotson, Watson, Chig at tight end. Really want Anthony Richardson. Should I try to get 104 or stay put? So help me put in the chat, make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Are you wanting to move from 102 to 104? Or are you saying that Young and Stroud will be gone with 102 and 103 and you want to trade up to get Anthony Richardson at 104? Help clarify that for me, because I think those are two different things. So if you're wanting to trade if you're saying that you really want Anthony Richardson, but you're thinking about trying to trade back to 104, that can't be it. That can't be it. So you're probably saying that you think Young and Stroud are going to go first, and then Richardson's going to go at 104. So you're trying to trade back up. That's what I'm going to work with until I hear from you. I'm going to assume that that's what you're talking about. So in that scenario, you currently have at quarterback Justin Fields. I'm assuming this is super flex. I don't know that you said. I'm assuming super flex if you're taking them that early, though. So you have Fields, Goff, Geno, and Love. So you already have a good stable of quarterbacks. You do have 102 to where you're going to be able to take your choice of the quarterbacks. Yeah, I need a clarifying piece on this because you could just take Anthony Richardson with 102, unless you absolutely love Young or absolutely love Stroud and don't want to miss out on them. But I don't think you really need to do too much because you already have a great starter in Fields. You have solid fill-in starters in Goff, Geno, and Love, and then you have the rookie that's going to be your upside guy right now. So I think you stay put. I don't think you need to make any extra moves. Take your quarterback that you like at 102. And then at 104 or at 204 and 207, you're still going to get some nice pieces in that range. It's a good range to get some of these tight ends that like Mayer, Sam Laporta, guys like that. I think it's a good range for tight ends. You can probably get Spears in that range and then some upside receivers as well. So I like the range you're in. I'm probably sitting pat there at that point. Dan Toomey just popped in. Dan, by the way, did a fantastic job covering the NFL draft for the Dynasty Nerds page. Really appreciate him doing that. He said, "What's up, Garrett? Grabbed Spears at 110 in a 1 QB the other day. Let the haters hate. We will keep believing." That's right, Dan. That's right. Hate all you want. And in Superflex terms, that's basically what? 2-2? It's great. That's great. Take him. I'll take him there all day. I'll take him there all day. And I've gotten him. I've gotten him all over the place, late seconds, like 211 and things like that in super flex leagues. I don't do many 1 QB anymore. But look, if the Titans were comfortable with his knee, I'm comfortable with it too. All right. Attention, better fans. You can have the Better Sports Network newsletter emailed to you every single day. The only place to get our daily better bet plus exclusive offers, program alerts, special events, and our top moments. Register for free right now at bettersports.com. Look, that newsletter, you want to get it emailed to you. The better bet of the day, I'm always looking for that. I'm always looking to where to place my money. And overall, it's done pretty good. Peter, I said 2-2. When did I say 2-2? I don't think you know what you're talking about. All right. With that, Alex just said, I know it's still in beta testing, but the GM app is looking pretty sweet. Yes, see, we weren't lying, guys. We weren't lying. GM 2.0 actually is coming out. There have been a select group of Nerd Herd members that have gotten to test it. There's still some bugs, still some things that we're working out, but it's looking really good. It's going to be, got it. Instead of 20222. Got it. Like Atwell, 22 Atwell. But yeah, the GM 2.0 is pretty sweet. So if you haven't yet, you got to become a Nerd Herd member. Like you've got to. The nerd scores are there. You got to do it. All right, real quick, we are going to take a break. When we come back, though, I'm really excited about this. I called Dennis today, and I was like, this is what we're doing. He's excited about it, too. We are going to be doing a way too early 2024 mock draft. Now, don't hold us to these picks. We don't know the future, but I can tell you one thing. Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. look like absolute can't miss prospects. Can't miss everyone can miss. I mentioned that earlier. It's possible they can miss, but as close to can't miss as you can get. Those two players look incredible. Caleb Williams, another guy that could end up on that top echelon of quarterbacks, and Marvin Harrison. I did a little sneak peek. I did a too early nerd score on him. Let's just say we're talking Bijan levels, but at wide receiver. He's that far ahead of the competition. He is that guy. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a Dak Prescott. We'll be Dak Prescott in a few minutes with our very own Dennis Bennett. Don't go anywhere.
Moose and Keith, weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Better Sports Network.
Calvin Ridley yesterday, he applied for reinstatement from the National Football League.
Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence. That is crazy potent on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, Ridley's great.
I think Trevor Lawrence is a guy I want in fantasy this year.
I think you're probably right. I think they're just going to get better and better. First off, Peterson's a wonderful offensive mind, a great head coach, and we've seen that and saw that this year as Jacksonville made it to the postseason. And Trevor Lawrence, anybody that questioned whether or not he could play in the National Football League or just how good he was going to be in the NFL, those questions were answered this past season as in the second half of the year. Statistically speaking, he was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's how good Trevor Lawrence is. You throw Calvin Ridley into the mix, he's going to be great. Yeah, I think Lawrence is a guy you want. I think Ridley's a guy you want. Clearly, Travis Etienne is going to be one of those early, first-round selections as well, being the dual threat running back that he is, not only running, but also catching the ball out of the backfield, Keith, and the ability to take something small and take it to the house. Take a 5-yard dump pass, make a guy miss in the open field, and he's gone. I mean, you saw that with Travis Etienne this past season for Jacksonville. Yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, I think you're going to go from a team in the year span where you wanted no part of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you're looking at fantasy football to where you want as many Jaguars as you possibly can because they're going to be really, really productive. And let's see if they get their tight end back as well. Who had
Evan Ingram was great.
And Evan Ingram, who was great this past season.
Yeah. I mean, if they keep that whole core together, their offense is going to be one of the best in football. Like, I legitimately think that they could be one of the best offenses in football.
Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, then
and Ridley,
Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, a good offensive line, and you've got Doug Peterson being creative calling.
Right?
And you look at that division. The Colts are a mess.
Yep.
Titans
look like they're on the downslide.
Titans are on the downslide, right? That window is clearly closed. And then you got the Houston Texans.
Years away from relevancy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville could win 11 games next year.
Moose and Keith, weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Better Sports Network.
All right, we are back. Better Sports Network. We are about to have our very own Dennis Bennett on. He's on every week. He's the man. We will be having him join us in just a few minutes. But before he does, let me tell you something. Best ball season is here. Look, I'm on Underdog like crazy. I'm trying to win that $3 million. Like, I'm there. Best ball season is here, and we're helping you win our draft winning teams on Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports Network. Check out the first best ball fantasy football draft featuring some of our top analysts like Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper, Britt Flynn, Corey Parson, and more. Now playing on YouTube at Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports Network. Learn winning draft strategies and find out which players you need to have on your fantasy football teams this season. Get in the huddle and start drafting best ball teams of your own on Underdog Fantasy. Visit fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Use fantasy promo code FANTASYALARM when signing up to receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Use promo code Fantasy Alarm. And here is the man himself, Dennis Bennett. Dennis, how you doing?
Man, I am doing outstanding.
Did you have a good time this weekend? I had a great time.
I had an awesome time, man. I wish it was next year already.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. I got to be honest. I'm not much of a snow guy, but if we could do a winter meeting, I might be into it. That was a cool place.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet cabin. It was fun just getting to hang out with everybody. We ate some really good food as well.
Those steaks were insane.
Did you end up getting the steak or no?
No. I had chicken Milanese, which was delicious. I got to be honest. When he said that steak was 32 ounces, I was like, I'm gonna pass. I mean,
it's a lot. It's a lot. It was big old tomahawk steak. That was it was fun. I'm not gonna lie. That was
looked
fun.
good though.
It was delicious. All right. So we're gonna do something a little bit different tonight. I know we just had the 2023 NFL draft. Everyone's like, we're still just trying to figure out what we're doing with this year's class. But we're like, look, we're not waiting. We're not chilling. We're going on to next year. All right. So we're looking at 2024. All right. So Dennis and I, we're going to go back and forth. Now, mention it before he came on. Don't hold us to this. All right. This is still early. We're still learning things about this class.
We could be lying or we could be wrong. Whatever.
That's right. But we want to familiarize you guys with some of these names. Some of these names are going to be pretty obvious. There's going to be some other new ones that you haven't heard of. But Dennis, when I was doing some of my research, I ended up tweeting out about this as well. But in doing some of my research for this mock draft that we're going to do, I realized you're going to love this class at wide receiver, Dennis.
Because there's some big dudes. You talking about Michael Wilson, are you?
They're huge. I mean, one of these guys is 6'5" and the other one's 6'7". Like, these guys are monsters. So, for a year that we had covering Josh Downs and Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison and Tank Dell and all of these smaller slider receivers, we've got some big boys in the 2024 draft. Doesn't always mean they're going to pan out, but they at least got some size.
For my Donald Parham shares.
All right, so Dennis, I'm going to allow you to have the first pick. This is a super flex draft. I think that makes the pick pretty obvious, but I'm going to let you decide if it is or not.
So the homer in me, you see the Buckeye jerseys behind me, really would love to go Marvin Harrison.
Right.
But you just can't. Caleb Williams I think Caleb Williams may have been the only guy, if he had come out this year, if he was eligible to come out this year, he may have been the only guy drafted ahead of Bijan Robinson.
Yep.
So I'm going to go Caleb Williams at the 101. I think that a lot of stuff has to go wrong over the next 12 months for him to not be the 101 in the NFL draft and in your fantasy drafts for Superflex.
Yeah, I ended up finding myself watching a lot more Travis Dye tape than I originally anticipated, simply because I kept getting to watch Caleb Williams.
Right.
Travis Dye ended up being the second lowest rated running back in this class for me. But I got to watch Caleb Williams.
You got to watch a lot of Caleb Williams.
Right. So all of a sudden I'm like, I just watched like 5 or 6 games of Travis Dye. I didn't plan on doing that, but it was worth it because I got to watch Caleb Williams, and he does. I mean, we've heard this a lot over the past few years of, and you always want to comp players to guys that are successful in the NFL. We've heard a lot of next Tyreek Hill. We've heard a lot of next, this guy. And we've heard a lot of next Patrick Mahomes. But gosh, does this guy look like the next Patrick Mahomes?
Right.
I mean,
he looks like what Patrick Mahomes looks like if he was mobile, like really mobile.
And that's the thing. I think he's a better athlete than Patrick Mahomes is, which Mahomes is no slouch, especially when it comes to playoff time. I mean, he can get up and move, and he can get you some yards with his legs. But, man, Caleb Williams, just size, speed, arm, all of it.
So the one caveat that I'm going to throw out there is he's
All right.
listed at 6'1". So there's probably a good chance he's going to measure at 6 foot, but he's clocking the scale at 218. So if he checks in at 6 foot, 215, I think that eliminates a lot of the concerns that we had with Bryce Young.
Right.
So,
right.
and he's just got a dynamic arm, runs great. And so I think, hopefully they're not fudging the numbers too much for us.
Right. I'm hoping that as well. That is one thing that's like, I could see that being problematic. Not, I shouldn't say problematic. That's the wrong word. I could see that being the one like small ding in his armor, but still, we're not talking about Kyler Murray and Bryce Young size. We're talking about a solid 2 inches or so taller than that and much thicker as well. So I think we're in good shape here. I'm not gonna lie. I had a really hard time because I assumed you would take Caleb Williams. I had a really hard time deciding what to do it to, because I do think that there is another quarterback in this draft that is really, really good. But I am not confident that he's bulletproof. And this early, I want to take the bulletproof guys. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is as close to bulletproof as I have covered at wide receiver. Now, granted, I'm not one of these guys that, I've covered 27 years of the NFL draft. And, I'm not there yet. But
when we talk to those guys, they're all saying
that?
this about Marvin Harrison Jr., right?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Even I remember listening to guys like Joe Klatt last year saying he's the best wide receiver in college football, and he can't even come out yet. Marvin Harrison Jr. is that good. He's already the best one. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Had he been able to come out this year, I think he would have been a top 5 pick in this class. I think he's that talented. I think he's that good. Look, we've had Justin Jefferson come out. We've had Jamar Chase come out in the past few years. Like, good players. Smith come out. As a raw prospect, just looking at their tape, I would take Marvin Harrison Jr. above all of those guys as prospects. Now, knowing what we know now, where they land and, what numbers they put up, obviously, it's a little easier to just say, well, if I know for sure I'm going to get Justin Jefferson for 3 years putting up those numbers, I'll just take him. Yeah. But just on a prospect grade alone, I think he's the best one out of all of them.
I think the only real concern with him is if he goes to the combine or on his pro day and runs a 4.6.
Sure.
And even then, I think we've seen enough talent that it's not going to ding him that hard because he's 6'3" and 225 pounds, and he moves really, really well. That being said, I think he's going to be pretty comfortably in the 4.5s when he runs, maybe even a 4.4. I mean, he doesn't get caught, but he's also, he's just phenomenal. I agree. You can't really go wrong picking him at the 102.
Yeah, I wanted to be at a spot where I insulated myself from the risk. And look, it's a super flex draft, so there's quarterbacks that were tempting, but I had to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. So that puts you on the clock at 103 here. Dennis, you taking a quarterback or are you going somewhere else?
The combine is going to play a role in where I'm looking here.
Yeah.
Because I am becoming a noted anti-tight end guru. So I think you have to have an exceptional, I think, physical profile for me to draft you as a tight end. Like I'm in 2 drafts right now. I haven't drafted a tight end in 2 rookie drafts into the 4th round. And so Brock Bowers, just the way he's putting up numbers is really tempting. Now, I think let me find him here. He's listed at 6'4" and 230. When you watch him, he doesn't look, he's not a big dude.
No.
So he's probably going to measure 6'2.5" maybe. And to be considered a tight end that plays a lot, he's going to have to put on, 15 pounds, 20 pounds? So he's be a slot receiver. Move tight ends, slot receiver. It's going to be able to win against defensive backs. Probably. As long as he's getting safeties, he'll be bigger than cornerbacks. It looks pretty good for him. But it's a super flex, and Drake May is sitting there, 6'5".
All that lead up to take Drake May?
Yeah, I mean, it's 6'5", 220. If he puts up a season like he did last year, 4,300 yards, 38 touchdowns, 66% completion rate. If he does that again this year, I think in a super flex, you got to take him over even Brock Bowers, even Travion Henderson. I just think that in super flex, you take the quarterback that projects to be, a prototypical quarterback. I don't know that he's necessarily, looks like he ran the ball 184 times last year? 14. No, that's 14 games. Yeah, it says he ran for almost 700 yards last year.
Yeah, he's a good athlete too.
Yeah, so that puts him in that mix up there, and I think you got to take him unless he tanks this year and has a Spencer Rattler third year kind of thing and just falls on his face and completes 55% of his passes. I think Drake May is the pick there.
No, you absolutely made the right pick. I was really hoping you were going to go with Brock Bowers because I was going to hop all over Drake May. And honestly, I almost took him over Marvin Harrison Jr. There have been a lot of reports that have come out from notable people in the league that have said the best two quarterbacks in college football were not eligible for the draft this year. That's crazy because they're referring to Caleb Williams and Drake May. And
they are.
And this year's class is there. It's not a bad quarterback class. It's not like, it was last year with Kenny Pickett and nobody else really. It was a good quarterback class. So the fact that those two guys are that highly esteemed at this point, it makes things very interesting. All right, this puts me back on the clock. I'm really struggling here because I do think that there's two very good players on the board, but you waxed poetic about Brock Bowers, and I think he's probably the right pick here. Once again, just going with elite talent. We saw him put up nearly 900 yards and 13 touchdowns as a freshman. Absurd numbers. Last year, put up almost 1,000 yards. Slight dip in the touchdown department down to 7, but I mean, it wasn't like he didn't play amazing. Those numbers are incredible just for anyone. So you put all that together, and look, he even ran the ball some. In 2021, 4 rushes for 56 yards and a touchdown, averaging 14 yards a rush. Averaged only 12 yards a rush the year after, which is still amazing. But 9 carries for 109 yards, 3 touchdowns, rushing the football at tight end. Brock Bowers is that guy. I'm a fan. He could be amazing at the NFL level. All right, Dennis.
So
you're on the clock at 1-5.
I've spoken my piece about Brock Bowers. Like he's the kind of tight end that would make even me draft a tight end. I don't know if I draft him at 104, but he's the kind of
you
tight
telling
end
me I
that
should
would
have
make
waited and taken him at 6? Would I still have gotten him?
It would depend a lot on the kind of season some of the running backs or wide receivers have, to be fair.
Sure.
Travion Henderson last year. Now, again, there's a lot of Buckeyes on our list because they're good. What are we going to do? It ain't our fault they're always open and scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
But Henderson was dinged up a lot last year. Didn't hardly play. Mayan Williams carried the load for the most part, and then Dallin Hayden came out of nowhere. So there's some questions about, can Henderson really carry the load? And I think he's going to have to prove that this year. One guy who's shown he can carry the load and doesn't have to prove it is Braylon Allen. The question with him is going to be, he's a big dude. He looks like he could run a 4.65. And if he runs a 4.65, that's going to scare people off, push him down, and probably rightfully so. I mean, you have to have some sort of speed there. A wide receiver I looked at and I really liked, kind of watching. Then he had a down year last year. Was Xavier Worthy. He kind of came out, looked good, then didn't look as good. Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback, it is a super flex draft. And so I end up, kind of looking. That's where I'm going to start my research, is the quarterbacks. And so we got Penix Jr., who completed 65% of his passes last year at Washington, 4,600 yards, 31 touchdowns. Quinn Ewers was a hot name. He came out last year and finally, after spending a redshirt year at Ohio State as a 17-year-old college freshman, he got the job at Texas and then went on to kind of not have a great year, completed 55% of his passes. Now, the team wasn't super good. They relied a lot on Bijan Robinson. All of that being said,
you're stringing me along, aren't you, Dennis?
I am. I think as I look at it, it's still too early on the quarterbacks for me.
Sure.
They haven't established themselves. If Penix has another year like he did last year, then I just have to get over the fact that he's been in college for 6 years. That's gonna be an issue. But I liked Hendon Hooker, so I should be able to deal with that. Okay.
Sure.
I'm gonna end up going back to Travion Henderson.
Okay.
I expect he's gonna have a really good year this year. Now, the loser in that is going to be Mayan Williams, who came on last year. I think he's going to have to – he's going to get shut out because Henderson is a 3-down back. He's got good size, runs the ball well, can catch the ball, has a nose for the end zone. So I want to try to get a bell cow back. We're at the 105, getting into the middle of the first round. None of the quarterbacks have established themselves yet in my eyes other than May. And so until those quarterbacks up, I'm going to go Travion Henderson here.
No, it's a really good pick. I am glad you took him because I was struggling with who to take here with this next pick. So you helped me make that decision. But Henderson, here's the thing about Henderson. He had this rough year last year, which kind of reminds me of what happened with J.K. Dobbins. Amazing freshman season, rough sophomore year due to a lot of injuries, and moved down a lot of people's boards because of it. Then he came out his junior campaign and looked like the guy that he looked like his freshman campaign. I think we could see very much the same out of Travion Henderson. I mean, the kid ran for almost 7 yards a carry as a true freshman, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and he did it in the receiving game too. 27 receptions, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like, he put up a monster freshman year. And at that point, there were legitimate questions about, is he the best running back in college football or is it Bijan Robinson? Like, that was the question kind of coming in. And obviously Bijan had a fantastic year and Travion was banged up, and now he's fallen way down people's boards compared to where he was in Devy circles and things like that. But he's still a hot name, still a great player. I think he is very underrated. A guy that if I'm in a Devy league, I know he's still expensive, but I would try to get now because I think his stock is only going to rise. So big fan of Travion Henderson, but that does leave Braylon Allen for me. So I'll take Braylon Allen as well. We know Wisconsin has had a history of churning out these good running backs. And I mean, this dude, he is 6'2", 235 pounds. 2 great seasons, back-to-back years with over 1,200 yards in both seasons, 12 touchdowns the one year, 11 the other season. So we've really seen it out of him. We haven't seen the receiving game, which isn't a surprise. That's always the knock on Wisconsin running backs is, well, can they do it in the receiving game? I don't know. They don't throw the balls to the running back, so we don't really get to see it very often. But Braylon Allen, I mean, when you talk about somebody that can just carry a team, he is that type of player. He has the good pedigree too. He was a 4-star guy from 24/7 Sports. So it wasn't like he just came out of nowhere. He was expected to be this caliber of player. So really like really like him. It was thought that even when he was coming out of high school into college, that he might be a linebacker, not a running back. There was thoughts that he might be a linebacker. Well, he ended up being a running back and a pretty dang good one at that. So we got through the first half of our too early mock draft. With that, we had, let me make sure I got it right because I don't have it written down. I should have. That would have been the responsible thing to do. But we had Caleb Williams first off the board, Marvin Harrison Jr. 2, Drake May at 3. Then at 4, we had Brock Bowers. At 5, Travion Henderson. And then at 6, Braylon Allen. All right, Dennis, you're on the board. Pick 7.
So we're projecting a year
This is
out.
where it gets tough.
One thing we know is there's going to be a quarterback that has a great season this year and flies up the boards. We got some people on our list we're looking at. Michael Penix completed 65% of his passes, 31 touchdowns, 4,600 yards. He's going to be a 6th-year senior. But that being said, he comes with good size, 6'3" listed. So we'll give him 6'2", 212. Good size for a quarterback. If he can put up another season like that, I want to go and find the quarterbacks that I think are going to help me win. And, you know, he doesn't run a whole lot, but it's kind of it's one of those things like CJ Stroud. I've seen some of his games. He played at Indiana, so I got to watch him because watch him play against Ohio State. And he's been pretty good in the face of pressure and, you know, takes his lumps like a man. I think he brings a lot to the table. And so at the 107, I'm going to dip back into the quarterback pool and hope that he produces another good year. I'm going with Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington at the 107.
It's never a bad idea to bank on a quarterback, you know, to go quarterback, because even if he doesn't get first round draft capital, even just second round draft capital or what Hooker got third round draft capital, those are still valuable assets in Dynasty. So I think that's a good one to take here. Lots of things that to like on his tape. All right, I'm back on the board here. There's a couple guys that I'm leaning toward, but I'm going back to guys. I'm going to take Emeka Ibuka from Ohio State, wide receiver, 6'1", 205 pounds. Had a really solid year as the second fiddle in this wide receiver room. And look, you're saying the second wide receiver off the board is on the same team as the first receiver off the board? Yes, it is. And we've seen this in the past. There are other teams that have had multiple wide receivers on the same team.
Look around the NFL at the Ohio State receivers.
Exactly. Every year there's a great receiver that comes out of Ohio State. And guess what? 2 years ago, or actually this past year, 2 drafts ago, but this past year, the number 1 receiver or rookie of the year, we'll call him, Garrett Wilson, he went to Ohio State. And so did Chris Olave, who had a fantastic season in his own right. So I think it's definitely possible that the 2 best guys at the receiver position in this class are both from Ohio State. And look, Buka, he was the number 1 wide receiver in his class coming out of high school. He was the guy. So he's got the pedigree. He's somebody that you can really look at as someone that can work any layer, any level of the field. He's got solid hands. He runs solid routes. Like, he's a very safe, solid receiver from a good program. And if I'm drafting guys this early, those are the types of things that I want to bank on, because let's be real, I haven't done deep dives into any of these players, and I won't for months now. But from what I've seen, he's about as safe as they come at this point in the draft. So Dennis, you're back on the clock. You okay with me taking the Buckeye there?
Yeah, I am. I think he put up some great numbers last season, and you've got to take the production. Comes from a pipeline.
All right, who you going with here?
So it's the quarterback hound in me wants to go Quinn Ewers. And if he comes out, he's going to be draft eligible. He's going to be young. He's going to have to put up a season that blows last season away. At 55% completion rate, he's got Arch Manning nipping at his heels. Probably not yet, but Arch is there with symbolic pressure.
Right.
But I'm much like you. I'm going to kind of pivot away from the quarterbacks again, and I'm going to go with Raheem Sanders, running back.
That was my pick.
Out of Arkansas, I believe. Let me find my tab here. Big guy, 6'2", 218 pounds, 225 pounds. He's probably 6'1", 220, which is nice. His nickname is Rock, and so, much more appropriate than a 5'8", 165-pound receiver named Tank. 1,414 yards last season with 28 receptions, scored 10 touchdowns on the ground. I like what he brings to the table. He's another guy that has prototypical 3-down build. It's going to depend on, will he develop into a guy that can play on 3rd down? And as much as we want to look at the pass receiving on 3rd down, it's more often the blocking that the 3rd down guy needs to be able to do. And Sanders has the size to be able to hold up against linebackers and safeties and the occasional defensive end double team. So I'm going to go here with Raheem Sanders.
Yeah, there are some that think Sanders might be the best running back in this class. So, to get him as the 3rd running back off the board, I think is a good value. And you did me dirty though. That was my pick. So now I'm back on the board, and I'm trying to salvage this pick. And I think I am going to go Quinn Ewers. And this is just banking on his development, because right now he does not deserve to be a 1st-round pick in the NFL draft. But we're talking one of the highest graded quarterbacks ever coming out of high school. Left high school early to join Ohio State, which I always thought was kind of odd. Apparently they said it had nothing to do with the NIL, nothing to do with making money, but joining Ohio State, right? Yeah, joining Ohio State that late in the process, he had no chance to win the job. So it was always very odd to me that was the decision that he made. But all of that being said, he has a real shot to be a legit NFL quarterback. This is the risk, and this is the riskiest pick I've made of all of these guys, I think. But I think it's more than worth it when you're looking at a quarterback with his upside at this point. We're at pick 110 here. So I'm good. I'm good taking him there. All right. So Dennis, that puts you back on the clock. And if my calculation in my head is correct, this is your last selection.
It is my last selection. And, there are several players here that fit my ideal prototype at wide receiver. Yep. The one I looking at, which is Johnny Wilson, 7. To be fair, there hasn't been a lot of successful receivers or tight ends at 6'7". So Well, theoretically, it sounds cool. He's not the guy. Other good, great guys that we got, looking at Xavier Worthy, Rome Odunze, Adson, Troy Franklin, Blake Corum, in our first mock draft we did for the 2022 season before the declaration deadline, Blake Corum actually made it into the first round. So he's pretty highly regarded, at least in Dynasty nerd circles. And then he went back to school. My concern, 5'8", 200 pounds, is that really 5'7" and 190?
Sure.
Probably. And so that's going to really affect, I think, his draft capital. So I'm out on him. I like Xavier Worthy, and he had a really nice freshman year. Like I mentioned earlier, he faded as a sophomore. And he's got the height, 6'1", but he's only listed at 160 pounds. And you can bet on somebody to be the next Devonta Smith. And I don't know that we're there yet. Those seem like generational guys. So I think I might pass there. And I think I'm going to go with Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. He's got decent size. He was another guy that we had in our early mock drafts, and then he decided to go back to school. Brings a lot to the table. 200 put up 75 receptions, 1,145 yards. So he's got a nice 15.3 yards per catch average, 7 touchdowns. I think he brings a lot of outside versatility. He's got the size to play outside. He can be a guy that's, a little bit smaller. Cortland Sutton can play downfield. One of those guys that you put on the outside, and he takes that X receiver position.
Yeah, no. Once again, you've done a great job of stealing my players because I thought for sure you're going to go with somebody else, and he was going to fall to me. And I was like, oh, here we go. Get my boy Rome. That did not happen. So I am going to go with Xavier Worthy then. I think he is, he's got the length. I really do want to see him bulk up. I would like to see that weight higher because if they're listing him at 160,
somebody needs to take him to a barbecue buffet every day down there in Texas and just, load up on the baked beans and the brisket and the pulled pork, man.
Yeah, cornbread.
Go at it every day.
Yeah. He's a California boy originally, so maybe he's just not. He hasn't adapted the Texas way of life yet. But yeah, I would love to see him add some weight. But we have the height and we've got the speed. And yes, this year was a down year for Worthy, but still 9 touchdowns. That's a lot of touchdowns in a down season, 760 yards. But when you compare it to his freshman year, 981 yards, so almost 1,000 yards as a true freshman, 12 touchdowns. Obviously, that's, a little bit disappointing. You're hoping for better production there. This is another one that I'm hoping we see him bounce back to what he did as a freshman, because there are a lot of players that we just don't see that all 3 years of production. If you see all 3 years of production and they're elite, then they're going, easily in the top end of the first round. Like, those guys don't come around all the time. Typically we see either they start off slow when they do well as juniors and seniors, or that there's a dip in their production at some point. And that's what we have with Worthy here. He was a very highly regarded prospect coming out, one of the top receivers in his class. So I'm going to lean on the pedigree. I'm going to lean on what he did early on. And I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy as the last pick of our way too early 2024 mock draft. Dennis, did we do well or did we do terrible? People in the chat, tell us what you think. Was there somebody that we missed that we should have had in there? But I think we did pretty good.
I gotta be honest. I'm 100% biased, but I think we crushed it, man. I think we killed it. Like the Worthy pick, like the the early breakout age spreadsheet stands are going to love him. He had a great freshman season.
Yeah. All right. I think we did good. I have been hearing a little bit about Malik Nabbers. That's somebody that when I was tweeting out all the heights of these guys, that I was told that he was someone that was left out. So Toomey telling us that that's another guy that we got to look into. One of the size speed freaks in this class, apparently. But Ryan said we did a great job. So as long as Ryan believes in us, I believe in us. There we go. All right.
Yeah, Dan. Ryan believes in us.
Ryan believes. We don't care what you think, Dan. Unless you said we did great too, then we would have cared. Our producer, he says he believes in us. Thanks, Heavy T. Appreciate it, buddy. All right. Real quick, there were a couple questions that came in during the time that we were doing this draft. So real quick, Dalton Kincaid, should I trade him for a late 24? It's too late, Dan. It's too late. A late 24 first to get him. 10-team, 1 quarterback. I'm assuming that means it is not a tight end premium. Dennis, would you be willing to trade a late 24 first to get Dalton Kincaid?
So the Kincaid hive just kind of strikes me as thinking the Dawson Knox is just going to get put in a box and go away. I think, and while they look like they're transitioning to a little more two tight end, I don't know that I'd give up a late 24 first if I'm counting on Dalton Kincaid to be my tight end this year. I feel like you're going to need somebody that's going to be more consistent. Maybe he proves me wrong and has a great rookie season, but I still feel like he's going to be a rookie tight end in the NFL with an established tight end and on an established team. He's going to have to earn his snaps and earn his targets. And if you're sticking him in your lineup every week, I don't think it's going to make a league winner. If you feel like it's a piece that you're playing the long game with it, and maybe you're looking at him for next year and you think, well, he's going to be better than anybody else on the team, the 109 next year. If you believe that, then go for it. Still a little high for me.
Yeah, I always struggle. I always struggled trading what, in a 10-team, 1 quarterback league. I'm guessing he was taken somewhere between 105 and 108. So taking a guy that you just took in the middle of the first round, and then I guess he's getting the guy that I struggle with this one. I do, because you are gaining value. You basically traded a late first next year for a mid-ish first this year. So you're gaining value in that sense. I do like Dalton Kincaid. I am a believer in his ability, his potential connection with Josh Allen. I really like a lot. I have a hard time. With it. I feel like I shouldn't. If I'm being completely honest, I feel like I shouldn't have a hard time with this. I feel like this should be an absolutely yes. If you're trading a late first, if it was just the picks, if you're trading a late first for next year, for the 106 this year, that should be easy money. Like, yes, obviously trade a late first next year for a mid first this year. So I think I'm overthinking it. I would say yes. I think Dennis says no.
Yeah, I think
so I don't know that we help.
Couched in those terms, I think I buy it. But I'd much rather have the 106 though than Dalton Kincaid.
Right. For you, it's more the player that you don't.
I probably would.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I would take him there. But I'm curious, like where you would be every 2 years ending it night for them to Rich talk about how much he loves Dalton Kincaid.
Dennis, you did break up a little bit, but I heard something about Rich and Dalton Kincaid, and that is true. Rich Dotson loves Dalton Kincaid. I like Kincaid. He loves Kincaid. That is absolutely true.
Right.
So appreciate that, guys. I appreciate all of the questions in the chat tonight. Great chat engagement all night. Lots of people talking about trades, talking about their drafts, things like that. So genuinely appreciate all the engagement tonight. I had a blast with everyone. Thank you to Peter, who came on earlier on in the show. We talked NFL draft, answered some questions. Dennis, great job. Thank you so much for helping me with this way too early 2024 mock draft for tight end or super flex leagues. Dennis, I know that you have a lot going on. Do you want to tell the people what you're doing, what you're involved with, and where they can find you?
Well, I am, currently running my rookie drafts. I'm in the Discord with Peter every Tuesday night at 9:00 talking trades. The fantasy football roundtables most Mondays and Fridays. Thursday nights I'm here, and I'm currently managers to take over some orphans in the Dynasty Nerds Give Back charity leagues. So if you're interested in maybe getting involved with one of those, email me at nerdsgiveback@dynastynerds.com. We still need a couple more owners. It's a charity league that raises money for No Kid Hungry, Disabled American Veterans, and the V Foundation. 72 teams, 612. It's a championship belt and trophy smack.
Ooh, pretty sweet. Love it. And I love that we have that, opportunities to give back to those that have been going through some stuff. Love that we are doing that. So yes, email Dennis.
Well, we've raised over $5,000 in our first 2 years.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, we will be back next week. Like we are I shouldn't say every week. We had the NFL draft last week and things were a little bit weird, but we will be back next week. I will be back. Dennis will be back. We'll have another guest. I don't know who it is at this point, but it's going to be somebody awesome. And we're going to be talking all things Dynasty, all things NFL, all things draft, all things with your rookie draft. We've got the Nerd Show coming up this week on Tuesday. Lots of good stuff planned there. Hint, hint, check your Discord. We might be asking for listener questions very, very soon. So check that out. I am Garret Price. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty Price. This time of year, really talking a lot of things draft, talking a lot of things prospects. And you know what, guys? It's startup season, one of the most fun times of year. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, interacting. We'll be back here 9:00 next week. We will see you then.